because I also was interested in making movies. So all the time I was doing stand-up, I used to make short videos and stuff like that.
So at the same time you had the stand-up fixation as a kid, you were into film still?
I really wanted to make movies. Woody Allen was one of my big heroes too, in both ways. He was a great stand-up, and he made me laugh so hard with his movies. I was like, if I could make people laugh that hard, like where they're just like losing their composure, I want to make that happen. So.
And another person like Cosby that has been so great for so long that no one recognizes him. And then he'll die and everyone will go, oh my God, he's my favorite.
Yeah. Exactly.
Even though, the new movie will open and you can go down and lay down and watch it and no one else will be in there with you. And these things are brilliant. I mean, he had a run of films for like 18 years that were just as good as any film that came out every year.
Yeah, and some of them the funniest.
Yeah.
Bananas. I mean, that shit is bananas.
Yeah.
It's great. Take the money and run. It's just all so good.
So when you started making short films, did you feel like the same type of process? I can't exactly get to where I want to go?
Well, it was easier with that because there was... I'm good technically, like in I used to fix cars for a living, and so I started when I was in high school interning at a local access cable TV station, and I figured out how all the machines work and how to fix them. And really, the thing about access to video equipment is just they don't want you to break it, And I used to fix it. So I used to take it home on the weekends, the stuff that they used to use to cover like high school basketball games, and I would shoot films and edit them. But that's something I've really always been into, photography and video and all that stuff. So that's where
and being able to figure out how to get the stuff, because it is sitting all over the country. Public TV stations, public access. This stuff just sits most of the time, and they'll shoot for a half an hour a day, and then that'll be the end of it.
And at the time, it was not like a little video camera that you held in your hands. It was a huge package. It was a giant tape recorder, like up to your thighs, and then a massive camera with a big cable between them. That was the package. So I lugged that around. And when it came to trying to do stuff like that, I had energy. I think that was what made me do this stuff, was that in school, I would fall asleep all the time. I literally wanted to I used to think about killing myself when I was really little, because I was just always dry-mouthed and tired. I was just uncomfortable. I wasn't personally unhappy. I had, great parents and a good family and even friends, but I was just physically exhausted, bored, and I'm like, I just want to kill myself. I mean, I'm only fucking 9 and this already stinks. And then...
the suicide note, I can't take the physical discomfort.
This just feels shitty. And I didn't even have a real physical ailment. I just didn't like being in a human body or something. Just fundamentally. But so when I started all of a sudden I'm dragging video equipment around in the hot sun and organizing, calling people and getting them to meet me somewhere, and then half of them don't show up and you have to rewrite it, and all of a sudden I found something I could get into. So I got into the video, and then at night later into the stand-up.
See, that's another interesting thing about you. I think that a lot of comics are like, I'm going to work on my act, and I'm going to wait for somebody to come along and say, this is what I've been looking for. And you're the type of guy, you will pick up the phone and sell yourself.
Yeah, well, and also I'll just do stuff. I'll do my own stuff. And when I was messing around with stand-up when I was 18 out of high school, and then during the day I was working like full-time, and I'd gotten a job at a local access cable TV station, covering hockey games and stuff like that. And I realized this was going to be a long slog going through television to get to movies. And then I decided I'd rather do stand-up and let that take me to make a movie someday. I saw stand-up as a way to get to make films like Woody Allen did. That's what he did. He was just so funny that they gave him a camera. So I decided to try that way instead. I ended up going back and forth a lot.
So what?
Well, I'm exhausted listening to your process.
A lot of it is because of technical knowledge.
No, you're right.
It's because I took that fucking AV class in junior high school and learned how to fix
computer.
That's why. It's because I learned how to fix a fucking overhead projector, and I learned how to rewire shit and fix it.
Yeah.
That's why I know how to do this stuff. Because when I was in high school, I got an internship at a local access cable TV station, and they had remote deck and camera setups.
Yeah.
And they had editing bays. And the only reason they don't let you use shit in those places is because you might break it. They're just worried that you'll break it. It costs money.
Yeah.
But I fixed that shit. Like, I became this techie kid. I was like this little nerdy kid who would fix the fucking cameras.
Yeah.
So certainly they trusted me with it. Like,
Yeah.
I had the keys to every room in that fucking station.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even tell anybody. I would just take the shit out.
Yeah.
And I would shoot my own little videos.
Yeah.
And I'd edit them when nobody was using the editing bay. I taught myself how to do everything.
Yeah, that's
my
you.
phone,
That's all right.
sorry.
No problem.
So I changed in that way. I learned how to direct. I worked for a local access cable TV station in Newton, Massachusetts, where I grew up, and I learned how to run video cameras and how to edit. I shot hockey games for my high school and stuff like that, and then I'd do like little art pieces, and then I'd take the cameras home and make my own little funny videos. That's kind of where I started. And then every time I had any little bit of money from doing stand-up, I would make short films. I made short films throughout my years. The short films for me go back to, I don't know, 89 or something like that, and I go to festivals with them. It's just something I've always loved. I didn't go to film school. I didn't go to college.
When you decided to change your life and to stop doing drugs, or at least do less of them, and to start emotionally connecting better to your family, look, what were the changes that you made?
Well, stopping the drugs was the first one, and I went about it in a way that probably wasn't good for me, which is I just stopped. You know, I kind of envy people that went through. It never occurred to me to go to like a 12-step program. I just stopped. So I got pretty depressed. Like, if you use drugs as a kid, and then all of a sudden you have no drugs, and you took 2 years off of building your emotional support for yourself, all of a sudden you got nothing. So I got real down. But I started paying attention to school more. I started being fascinated by what I was learning in school. And I had a teacher in high school who got me an internship at a cable TV station in Newton, Mass. They had a cable, local access cable station. And I started learning about shooting video and editing. I started learning how to edit and how to use a camera and how to be a producer even. And I shot the high school football games and the hockey games. Like, I became like the whiz kid at the local access cable TV station. And I taught myself how to use every machine in there. I taught myself how to repair the cameras. And I became obsessed with production. I just dove into that. That's what got me in. That's what got me off the hook. And I started reading books I liked. I liked Dostoevsky back then, and I got into Russian literature. And also,
what I understand, as a kid, you were really a technical kind of like guy, almost I don't know if you would say a geek, but you were.
I was a nerd.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a AV kid. That's the thing that's gone now. There's no more AV kids. Well, because everything's you have your phone is a TV studio.
Right.
But at the time there was video cameras, and that was fascinating to me that they were black and white video cameras. The first video cameras I ever worked with was in junior high school. We had black and white video cameras that recorded onto reel-to-reel videotape. That was 1-inch videotape.
Right.
And you literally would record it as reel-to-reel, and you would edit by cutting the tape itself.
My gosh.
And it was very imprecise. You couldn't really you didn't know where the frames were.
Yeah.
But that's what videotape was then. And the decks were enormous, and so were the cameras. But I was in a class that was electronics and repair, so I learned how to fix, because everything electronic is finally just a circuit, and you got to get some power to it. Yeah. So then in high school, I had a teacher who got me an internship at a local access cable station, and I was able to repair some of the equipment, and I knew how to use it technically. So that's, in the end, you can get access to equipment because they know you won't break it. That's what it always comes down to.
And was that the root of your interest in
filming? Yeah, I really wanted to be a filmmaker, and I had cameras, and I had a dark room in our basement, and I liked taking pictures, but so I started working at cable access and learning how to use the equipment, and that was still a huge 3/4-inch video, these big cassettes that are about the size of a whole laptop computer now, a big one. And that just the tape, and the deck was just this huge thing that you had to strap around and then the camera went on your shoulder. And nobody could stand more than 10 minutes, of carrying all that equipment.
And in fact, by the time it was time to finish high school and go on to the next things, you were thinking it was a very serious option, wasn't it, to go pursue filmmaking as your
Yeah, because I'd already done. I'd made I had friends who had rock and roll bands, and I directed music videos for them. It was also a way to get out of trouble. Like I was always failing classes, so like I had a class that was doing poetry, and I wasn't going ever to the class. But so I brought all the kids from the class to the studio, and I shot a video of everybody reading their poetry in the studio. And so I got an A for the class, even though I didn't participate.
Right.
So anyway, I just was very hungry for that stuff. I really loved it. And I made little videos with my friends that I edited. I learned how to edit. And back then when you edited from one deck to another.
Right.
So you had to literally, in order to edit video, you had to record. You had to have one was the play deck and one was the record deck. And you had to play onto from one deck to the other and record in tiny pieces. And if you wanted to fix something in the middle, you had to go back and take that tape and record it onto, and you had to go down generations, and it was a nightmare, but it was a great learning experience.
And I guess it illustrates for people who wonder, how does this guy edit and do all the other pieces of the puzzle? It's always been that way.
I've known how to do that stuff forever. And in computers, my mother was a computer software engineer, and she worked in computers when there were punch cards, literally, back in the 70s, when they would send her home with some punch cards that she had to edit. And then feed them into a computer that would then execute those commands. And then she would bring home computer terminals that were, there wasn't a screen then. There was this green and white paper, and the computer would type to talk to you, and you would type to talk to the computer, and then you'd have to go back through the paper to look back at what you said to each other and to sort of track it. But I watched my mother do that. And we had a modem at home, this big, huge box that she plugged our phone into to speak to the computer at work.
So when the time came, you're done with high school, you've got to figure out your future. What was the conversation? I mean, I read something about, it came pretty close to being NYU for you, right?
I wanted to go to film school, but I had no academic ability. I was a D student. I was literally a D student. I couldn't get through a year of school without a period of like depression and inability. So I knew that college was going to be more a failure. My mother was a single mom putting 3 girls through college, working, and it wasn't fair for me to go just see what happens. So I didn't go to college. But at one point, I had a junior high school teacher who said she knew somebody at NYU Film School. And so I drove down to NYU with my 3/4-inch tapes and my photographs and stuff that I'd done. And I showed them to a guy, and he said, we can get you into the film school. Like, you can get admitted here. But at the time, I had just started trying stand-up. And I thought, I just had an instinct that going to NYU, and also I knew that, there's like 20 kids, they all get to make one short film, and there's only one director, and the rest are running sound. We're paying the same tuition and running sound on some kid's fucking movie. And there was no way I was going to go through that because I had run a cable TV station. I had professionally run I was the technical director of a cable TV station.
Right.
So I just knew it wasn't a way forward.
What precipitated that first stand-up that you mentioned?